Hey, Pat.
Hello, how's it going?
It's going good. Thanks for bearing with me. I had like an Instagram loading issue on my end with my app, but
Been there,
I
no
know,
problem.
right? So, welcome everybody to episode 8 of Ask Evelyn for Where Does
Wow.
It Go Wednesdays. I
Wow.
know, it's hard to believe we're on episode 8 already. Um, so, here we are at Ask Evelyn where we answer your questions about garbage, recycling, and compost, and really kind of any other trashy topics that come to mind. So, I'm Becca Fong, and I am a residential outreach planner for Seattle Public Utilities, and I'm joined with.
I'm Pat Kaufman. I'm the commercial recycling and composting program manager for Seattle Public Utilities. Help businesses in Seattle recycle and compost.
And it's super exciting that you guys are here with us for another installment of Ask Evelyn. So, if you guys have questions or comments, please definitely submit them in our social feeds, or for sure, send them to askevelyn@seattle.gov, and hopefully we'll be able to answer them in a future episode. So, one quick reminder to housekeeping. It's great for those of you who are with us right now, but please share far and wide with your networks. We would love to talk to other folks and hear from other folks about what their questions and concerns and topics and issues are on anything really recycling, compost, or garbage related, waste reduction as well. So yeah, share far and wide in your networks. It's pretty awesome. We'd love to hear from more people. All right. Well, should we jump right into it, Pat?
Yeah, I can do that. I can bring that screen up. We also wanted to, well, okay, let's just jump right into it. Question number one.
All right, we got two. Of course, we have two questions
Yeah.
from folks who have written into us, and they are pretty good ones today. We have one for all of you bakers out there. We know baking's been really, really big since we've all been home. And then a question from the garden as well about what can be recycled. And then, of course, we'll give you guys an update on our latest kind of tip and trick from last week, which was repair. And we'll talk about what we're going to do for next week to share with you guys. So Pat, do you want to take us away with question one?
Okay, so question one to the Ask Evelyn inbox today is the question about wax paper. Dear Evelyn, like a lot of folks, I'm baking more and find myself using more wax paper and parchment paper. I want to make sure I can put it in the compost. That also makes me think other wax stuff like wax cardboard boxes, wax cups, butter wrappers, etc. Thank you, Marcus. So good question, Marcus. We get this question a lot. We actually do. Of course, our Where Does It Go lookup site has all the information on it. So if you go to SPU, Where Does It Go, you can certainly look it up for yourself. But we'll give you the lowdown. So wax, as a part of wax paper, it is accepted in the compost. It's okay. There are different products out there. Back in the old days, it was wax-coated milk cartons, wax-coated cups, all the fast food restaurants back in the 70s and before that, it was all wax-coated cups. Well, it's not anymore. There's very few, if any, wax-coated cups in Seattle that I know of, and I keep pretty good tabs on this stuff. Funny note on that, Dick's Drive-In had a wax-coated cup for their milkshakes, just the milkshakes, not the drink, for quite a while, but they just recently switched to a compostable cup for their milkshakes.
Okay.
But so you just don't see a lot of cups out there anymore. But wax paper, parchment paper, it's a very common product for folks to
Totally.
use for not just bakers, but just all kinds of reasoning. And folks will use wax coated paper, and it's accepted. But you have to be sure that it's not a poly coating material. So hard to tell. I get that.
It's super hard to tell. I
Yeah.
mean, you see it a lot more at like restaurants and businesses and stuff, but how would we tell the difference?
Well, sometimes you just scratch the surface, and when the wax gathers under your fingernail, you know it's wax, right?
Okay.
That's one trick that we advise people to do. There's other brands, like there's companies that we know that are approved, like the company Wax Tex. I can't flip it sideways, but so the idea of like this is kind of an old school company. It's wax paper, right? It's the classic wax paper that you would see, and you can kind of see, and even when you feel it's a little gummy to the feel, wax paper is. So that's another tip to look for. Wax coated paper in the traditional form. There's other versions of wax paper, and that's like parchment paper, which we use. These are sheets of parchment that they're also a wax coated or silicone coated paper, which is acceptable. But really, what we
Okay.
want yeah, what we want to see is material that isn't plastic coated, that doesn't have
Okay.
a adhered, coating to kind of keep things from sticking to it. So those are the concerns. There's one other brand I want to bring up, and that's this brand, which it's called If You Care, which you see at some markets.
Which of course we care.
We do. We always
We all
care.
care.
And it's actually a brand of paper, and they also provide a sheet version of it. But this is a sandwich bag, and it's not coated much at all. I mean, it's
Okay.
maybe got a real thin, but it's just unbleached paper, which is also cool because you care. But it's just paper, and so
Okay.
a lot of times you're just trying to get something between what you're baking and the sheet, to keep the stuff,
Sure.
keep the berries from spreading it onto the pan and having a cleanup job on the pan later.
Right.
So you
Or
can, yeah, use it.
or insulating, right? Like I've
Sure.
burnt a couple of cookies when I haven't put some parchment down. So I think that's
Right.
another thing to look at. Nobody wants burnt cookies.
Yeah, I'm not the baker. I'm just saying there's different products out there. You really have to, look at the product and think about, well, does it seem like it's wax coated or is it plastic coated? And I wish there was like a go-to site, a website. There isn't such a thing right now. We do have companies that send us information, send the city of Seattle information. We refer them to Cedar Grove Composting and Lens Composting so they can have their products tested. These products I told you about here, they have been tested and they're approved.
Totally.
Yeah.
I had also, this is the wax paper we had. I went on Reynolds' site and it said it's just paper with wax. So I think that's really important. I wanted to take a minute. We did get a couple of comments here and someone wanted to know, are wax products coated with a petroleum wax? And I don't know for sure for all of them. I know a lot of them can be. I'm probably pretty sure this is coated with a paraffin, which generally is a petroleum-based product. The company, If You Care, I haven't done the research, but it's definitely good to kind of look into the different companies to see if you want that information. So
Yeah.
I don't know if you had more info on that, Pat.
Right. Well, the thing about it is where so wax it's definitely not a value add element to the finished compost.
Right.
Like we're not like trying to get all the wax in the community up to the compost facility. It's
Right.
just, if it's covered in food and it's wax coated paper, you can compost it. The point is that it's kind of an inert element. It doesn't add value to compost. It's not a particulate that is a contaminant. So the fact that some wax comes from a petroleum-based source is not really the issue.
Right.
It's all
It's not gonna impact the compostability, but
Right.
it's definitely good to know that there are lots, like I didn't used to know that that's where paraffin wax came from. So I think it's always good to kind of, like I did this morning when I went on Reynolds' site to kind of find out some more. It's always good to do your due diligence if you are looking at some more upstream information.
yeah.
One other quick comment was, is wax paper better than aluminum foil? And I would say, as somebody who cooks and bakes a lot, it really depends on what you want to use it for. Wax paper can go in the compost, even if it has food on it. Aluminum foil, you would really need to clean. It's kind of hard to recycle to get it clean, and then also to have it be of a reasonable size where it can pass through the equipment at the MRF. So it really depends on your application, would be the answer to that question. So.
Yeah. You get into a lot of different questions there. So it's probably performance is your number one concern. That like, what are you doing so you don't use too much material in the first place, and then go with what you got.
And then I think really quickly, I wanted to have a little show and tell, but also I wanted to tee up to ask you about cardboard, like wax cardboard boxes, and because you guys probably see those a lot more in the commercial sector. So one thing I thought I would bring up is I was digging around in my garden, and this is a piece of plastic that I believe was on a paper cup that got composted in our garden. So this has probably been there for, I would say, at least 1 or 2 seasons. And what you will see is that the paper has completely broken down, but here is the plastic lining. So that tells you for sure, like the microbes, the worms, everything else has been broken down, but this is what remains. And if this went to a compost facility, it would get broken down into tinier and tinier and tinier pieces of plastic, which all of you Ask Evelyn viewers out there, I'm sure, are concerned about. Is you don't want tiny pieces of microplastic into your compost. So I thought that was kind of a cool thing to share, that this is what happens when plastic coated paper ends up in the compost.
Yeah, it was. I remember that takes me back to the days of the worm bins when they were more common. And if you put a plastic coated paper cup in the worm bin and you buried it within all the other worm castings and material and food and stuff, over time, if you dug through that, you would find a cup shaped piece of plastic because the worms would eat all the paper fiber out of the plastic. Leave the plastic. No, thank you. We don't want that. But they would consume all the fiber. And so, yeah, it doesn't go away. You know,
Right.
there's no way plastic.
So really quickly, wax cardboard boxes. People are going to be getting CSA,
Yeah.
CSA boxes delivered. I think Imperfect Produce may come in that. So what do we do with those, Pat?
So my response to that basically is that the reality is that wax coated cardboard is more rare these days. It kind of goes back to the other question about the paraffin. Yeah, a lot of it isn't wax coated. A lot of it is plastic coated. So it is garbage. It's not recyclable when it's coated like that, and it's not going to be for compost either. If it is a truly wax coated piece of cardboard, then technically it meets the definition of compostable. But I will tell you that on the commercial side, in the commercial sector, compost companies are starting to say no thank you to the wax cardboard stream. Because there's so many labels, there's so much tape, there's so many non-wax cardboard box looking products out there that in a lot of environments of production in a restaurant back of house area or a grocery back of house, it's just too hard to tell which is which. They're just saying, no, thank you to all of it. So it's becoming less clear of a item to communicate on and to do outreach on, frankly. So when in doubt, look it up, and then also just throw it out, because it's better to not contaminate the situation if you can avoid that.
Okay, so cool. So thanks, Marcus, for that question. Super important. So waxed products, totally great to put in your compost. The trick that you gave us is to scratch it and to see if the wax comes off, which is great. That's a great way to test it, to see if it actually can be used there. And then, when in doubt, look it up. When in doubt, find out. So check it out on the Where Does It Go tool. So that's really pretty great. So our next question I'm going to read to you is about plant pots. Hold on, I have a special guest. Do you want to say hello?
Hi.
So this is my little one. So Bug, I am doing a show right now. Can you come back in a little bit? Yeah. Do you want to hang with me for a second? Okay. You got to be quiet though. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So the question I got is, Dear Evelyn, I've got a ton of black plastic pots from all of the starts that I just planted, and a few of them have been hiding in the hinterlands of my yard. How clean do they have to be to put them in the recycling? I remember that they used to be on the flyer, but they aren't there anymore. Thanks, Gemma. It's a really good question, Gemma. We did used to have them on our Where Does It Go flyer, but now we've kind of shifted more to categories. So when in doubt, look it up on our tool. When in doubt, find out. Look it up on our Where Does It Go tool. So here's some examples. So
I think you got some examples there. That's good. We did take it off the Where Does It Go flyer. I mean, it just, we decided to minimize the number of images and have them be more representative of the categories of plastics. But it was it is funny how when our customers are like, hey, I remember seeing that on there. How come it's not there anymore? Well, it's also a product that, you're going to show us some examples, I think, but if it isn't clean, then it's not a strong category product, category item to put on the panel,
Right, totally. So, Bug, what's this? What is it? Is it a big plastic pot? Is it clean or is it dirty?
Dirty.
It's dirty. So, absolutely. So, in order for this to be recyclable, this is actually a pretty durable plastic. We would need to wash it off. Would you clean this off later, Bug? No. We have to clean it off with water to make sure that it's acceptable, right? And then, go ahead, Bug. And another option that we have is the Plant Start containers. So we have these, a lot of us have gotten these little starter packs. We haven't put our tomatoes in yet. And this is, you can kind of hear it. It's kind of a crinkly plastic. It's not a very high value plastic.
No, it's not.
So even if I was able to clean this out, I wouldn't want to put this in the recycling. So it's great for this. Most likely what I would do is reuse it, rinse it, clean it, refill it with a potting medium and start my seeds. So those are two things to really think about. This is pretty hard, great for reuse, but certainly Pat, can you kind of see there's some dirt on there?
Yeah, it's dirty. Yeah, it's
okay.
Good. You want to just get a shop rag or something and a bucket of water and just rub on the, just wash it up. You got to think about it like the mayonnaise jar. It's from a recycler's perspective, that plastic container is, I mean, I think it's an HDPE. I don't know for sure, ABS maybe, but probably HDPE. And the point is, for them to have it be a value add in the commodity, it's got to be clean. So, but there's a lot of yield in that pot. That's a thick plastic
Yeah,
container. So compare
totally.
the pot, the round one you had, to the tray,
Yeah.
it's just night and day. I mean, the amount of plastic in that 6-pack tray of tomato starch
Yeah.
is like, it makes up about one little section of the bottom of that pot,
Right.
world wise. So it's not worth it. It's kind of like one of those like Oreo cookie or Chips Ahoy cookie trays or something like that, that comes in the cookie products.
Cookies.
Cookies, sure. So those trays are just, they're so flimsy. You could just crumble them up in your hand and you let
Right.
go and it just, it has memory, but it has no real yield value. It's not heavy enough to bring value in the recycling.
Okay. So yeah, like everything else, I think it's a really good idea to kind of think about the density and the volume of it and then make sure clean, dry, and empty, just like you said, just like the mayonnaise jar. One thing I thought was kind of cool is I was looking at the bottom here, it says contains recycled material, which is
That's
kind of
true.
cool. So the material that you put into your carts ends up coming back to you as these pots. But knowing me, we'll have those for a long time. We'll be
That's great.
putting all kinds of other stuff in there. So all right, so now we've come to the part in our segment, or our next segment, which is where we update you on something that we tried to do last week. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
last week was repairing things. So I don't know, Pat, did you give that a try and were you successful?
So I don't think I had anything fail on me in the last week. So I haven't made any recent repairs, but I have a story I can tell. Couple of years back, maybe less than that, we had a dishwasher that was just making funny noises and it just wasn't draining and it wasn't working right. So, with the power of YouTube and the owner's manual, I started taking it apart little by little, try to get in there and figure out what's going on. And I didn't even know this, but dishwashers have down inside the drain area a mechanism called the chopper mechanism. And
Okay.
basically, like, if a strawberry falls down in the dishwasher to the bottom, it has a little wheel that kind of
Oh,
picks things up so it can spit stuff down the drain. It's
good to know.
did not know it was in there. Not that one should rely on that to
Right.
get rid of a bunch of food waste, because we want the food waste in the compost bin, not down the
Right.
drain. But the point is that ours had a couple toothpicks and little bones or something in it, and I just had to clear out the chunks that were jamming up the works and put it all back together, and it ran like a top. So
Okay.
I think the power of YouTube for repair anymore is really
Absolutely.
it's such a resource. There's so many people out there that just want to tell their story about their repair, and they film the whole thing and they show you step by step, and it's entertaining, in a way.
Cool. And the fact that you're willing to like jump in and try it. So my repair, I did have something break. I was not successful. It was a repair failure. But my son, who you just saw, he is a very active 4-year-old, and he had a tape measure and he was pulling it apart and pushing on the retractable button because that is just so much fun, right? Like you pull it apart and you watch
Oh,
it go
yeah.
over and over and over again. And as many discussions as I can have with him about how it is not a toy, eventually it broke. So I decided, all right, well, my challenge was to try to repair something. So I took it apart, which was actually super valuable. And I learned a lot about kind of the retractable mechanism. It was a spring steel kind of coil, and then an additional spring that pushes the button. And what had happened is he had snapped this little plastic housing
Right.
that went around the button, right? That kind of held the spring that attached to the spring steel thing.
A little shaky
That-
piece of plastic. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I tried Gorilla Glue, I tried super glue, I tried duct tape, I tried all three together, and it was a total fail. I did not fix my tape measure, but it was a super valuable lesson, I think, all the way around, that one, tape measures are not toys. Two, I learned a lot about how they work, which I think was really valuable. It was super great for my kids
Yeah.
to sit with me.
Yeah.
I have two kids, and so it was kind of a great lesson for them to see kind of the act of like, instead of immediately throwing it away, let's see if we can fix it.
Sure.
And I think that was the lesson that I learned, is that it's always worth trying, because we did throw the plastic housing away, but we did keep some of the other pieces, and we're going to repurpose them into different things. We found out that snap bracelets are made. You can make snap bracelets out of the little measuring tape metal. Of
Wow.
course, you need to coat them really well, but that's apparently what is on the inside of a lot of snap bracelets.
Interesting.
So we're gonna be making a lot of those. but it was just kind of interesting to think about that, right? To think about how things work, how things are built, and give it a shot, right? Give it a shot, because if I was successful, great. I would have been able to fix it, and I never would have known.
That's
So,
good. That was a
so
good one.
for all of you out there, give it a shot. It's worth it. It's worth trying. You learn some really cool stuff from time to time. So, Pat, you actually had a really cool thing for next week, and it's going to be
Okay.
more of a show and tell,
Yeah.
right? So, what are we going to do next week?
It was the vintage thing, right?
I think we're going to
Yes.
do gardens.
Oh yeah, yeah. Garden reuse. Yeah. So reusable materials from the garden, wasn't that?
All
Yeah.
right. Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of us are out there. I mean, you have a garden, right, Pat?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we've got a garden too. So we're gonna bring, a handful of things to show you guys how we've repurposed different stuff for the garden, because I'm sure a lot of you are out there, and it's just another way to think about all the things that we have in our life without having to get new stuff.
We'll try
So
to bring some visual examples if possible. It might just be storytelling time because I don't know if
that's
we'll
true.
bring all that inside, but we'll see. Maybe I'll do my turn from outside next week. We'll see.
Yeah, I was going to see if my signal will hold up for outside, because I think
Yeah.
that'll be kind of an interesting segment. So, all right, thank you. Oh, hold on, I've got one more question here in the comments before we go. And actually, this was actually a topic we covered yesterday. It's about paper that's got school glue or glue stick on it, if it can be recycled.
Right.
Oh, the kids' artwork, those lovely little treasures. So I think the main thing is that if you can pull the popsicle stick off, that would be great. And then if it is a piece of paper that is not covered with too much other stuff other than paper, like I had an example of a piece of construction paper with lots of tape on it, take the tape off or just throw it away.
Yeah, if you want to see more, if you want to see more about this topic, you can go to the SPU YouTube channel and watch our show from last week and see all of the visual aids that Becca brought to the show, showing all these degrees of artwork and glue and paper and whatnot. So there you go.
Absolutely. Thanks for the reminder, Pat. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. It is definitely a bright spot in my week to come and talk with Pat and to share all this information with you guys. We really appreciate you coming to, watch us while we do this, to send us comments, to send us questions, and we really look forward to seeing you next week. So with that, that's another episode of Ask Evelyn. Thanks for tuning in. Remember to tell somebody about us, because definitely that always helps spread the word. And remember to send us your questions. You can send them in our social media feeds. We're on Facebook, Instagram, obviously, and Twitter as well. You can look for our archive videos on YouTube. And if you want to go old school and send an email, you can certainly send it at askevelyn@seattle.gov. So we'll see you next Wednesday at 11:30 for more Trash Talk. And we hope that you find this as some useful advice from your utility. With that, I'm Becca Fong, and remember, life's simpler with less stuff.
I'm Pat Kaufman. Remember to recycle right.
All right.
Yeah.
Bye. See you guys next